And then you kind of said...
Oh, the other thing too
Yeah.
is I would just say, you don't have to be one of the guys. Like, I don't try to be one of the guys. I'm not a guy, and so I don't feel like I have to pretend like I'm one of the guys. I think sometimes women think that they have to be one of the guys if they're in that environment, and it's okay to set, you know,
boundaries.
It's okay to set boundaries, and it's okay to expect them to treat you like a lady. It's okay for you to expect them not to use language that they would use if it was just guys. And you know, it's okay if they want to go do a guy thing. If they want to go golf, I say fine. If we're on a retreat or something, go golf. I'm going to the spa. So I would say that's one thing. Don't feel like you have to be one of the guys just because that's the environment you're in. Don't be afraid to be a lady.
Exactly.
And so I think without Christ in my life, I really would have no balance. It really does give me an anchor. And I would say, you know, when I was at KPMG, Martha had a really poor experience at church as a child and had, I don't even really fully understand it. But she came when I bought my townhouse. She came to my housewarming party, which had a lot of people from church, and her comment to me after the housewarming party was, "Wow, your friends from church really dress nicely." And I was like, I'm not quite sure how to take that. Like, how do you think that they would have dressed? Like, they're normal people. But,
On the TV people.
yeah, and I think one of the things that, you know, when I look back over that experience when I left KPMG at my going away party, Martha got up and spoke, and she said, "I know you've said a lot today about how, you know, we've helped you and we've molded you." And she's like, "I want you to know that working with you and knowing you these past 10 years has made me a better person." So, you know.
A little seed was planted.
A little seed was planted.
Right.
And then I work with a lot of people now who I would say who have a Christian background, but for various reasons, none of them are kind of walking with Christ, with maybe one exception. So I really view it as an opportunity to really have a positive influence in them. And it can lead to some very lively lunch conversations. I would say now, everybody knows that I'm a Christian, so it's just, I don't really even think about the difference between it now. It's more of who I am. So maybe it's more as I grew in my relationship with God, and what I find is when I'm more consistent, I try and have my quiet times in the morning, and when I'm more consistent with that, it bridges the gap. I find sometimes I get like really stressed about what has to be done at work in the morning, so I'll just skip my quiet time and go into the day. And that tends to really have bad ramifications when I do that. But yeah, now really everyone knows. I would say earlier in my career, I tried more to fit in with the group, you know, with what the group was doing, and I just don't. Maybe it's a matter of growing into your own skin too. Just being comfortable with who you are and not feeling like you have to be someone that you're not. I would say in the work setting, I define success as having influence. Whatever, if I can influence decisions or policies, that I think is being a success. Because that I think means people respect your point of view. I don't do well. I would actually say I don't do well tooting my own horn. I would say I tend to be someone who lets the work product speak for itself and trust that people are going to, you know, and really it served me well. It's that one situation with KPMG is probably the only time where I felt, like, okay, that didn't work. But when I was having to negotiate my employment contract, it was really hard for me. I don't think I advocate well for myself. So it was really hard to say, these are my non-negotiables, and stick with it. One of which was, I'm not leaving Pasadena. But, you know, when your potential boss is pushing back on you about, it can be hard to say. When I was at KPMG and work was really intense, and it was a ton of hours, and I had no energy left for anything else in my life. I really felt like this isn't me, this isn't, and I would hear myself talking and how I talk to some people sometimes, and I'd be like having an out-of-body experience, saying, who is that woman? Like talking to people like that, that was probably the point when I was just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
When I was just exhausted, and I thought, who is this woman? I don't even recognize her anymore. When I didn't have appropriate boundaries in my life.
And
That's when I felt it was sucking me dry. Well, yeah, ultimately I left. That's how I pushed through it. Ultimately, I think there was one other partner that I worked for, and he was really pretty good at seeing when I was at my breaking point. And when he saw that, he would make sure things lightened up. The other thing is I have a great family that is a really good support system, and when I have reached my breaking point, they have always been like, we'll support you in whatever you decide to do, quit tomorrow.
That's great.
And I remember there was one period of time where I was in Solvang for a client at KPMG, Solvang of all places, and we were literally working like 18-hour days. Like, I kid you not, it was probably the scariest point in my whole career because my body was swollen from all of the caffeine, and I was having heart palpitations, and I had literally packed for 3 days and ended up staying 3 weeks. I kept checking out of the hotel in the morning thinking I was going home at the end of the day, and checking back into the little inn, waking the little desk clerk up at 2 a.m. when I was checking back in. And every time I talked to my family at home, I burst into tears. I was so tired, I was so exhausted, and I ended up having to spend a weekend there. And so my family decided to send me flowers, so at least they would cheer me up a little bit. So my mom called the hotel and said, can you give me the name of a florist? My daughter's up there for work, and she can't seem to get home, and we'd like to send her flowers. And the front desk guy goes, oh, Miss Maddocks, we'll take care of that for you. And so when I walked into my room that night, there was a bouquet of flowers for my family that says, we love you no matter what.
Oh, awesome.
So just having that, and they really did put up with a lot. Like Christmas Eve, waiting to go to the cemetery while I was on the phone with a client arguing about their 401k plan, and my mom's like, it's Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So having them put up with a lot, and really what probably saved me though was that I had the high school. I had this passion outside of it that drew me out of it, even though I probably wasn't giving it 100% of my best. If I didn't have that pulling me out of it, it probably would have been really bad. I have one verse for you before we close, and it's in Proverbs 31, where it closes off the verses of a woman of noble character, and it says, give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. And I like that verse because it does say you get acknowledged for what you put into it. It's about working hard and doing a good job. It's not about coming in and just expecting someone to hand you something on a platter. And when you do that, I'm a big believer that you do get acknowledged, and even if no one sees it, God knows that you've put your best into it.